Guys, welcome back to the channel. It has been a hot minute since I last posted, but I hope you guys will enjoy what I've been working on for the past little while. I got this idea in my head a couple months ago to do an experiment, and that idea being basically the title of this video, Can VR Make Me a Better Shooter in Real Life? Now, just like any other skill you are trying to develop, in order to get better at shooting, it's best to just go do it more often. But the problem with shooting is that it is expensive to shoot a ton, and it takes most people a decent amount of time to travel to a place where they can shoot, be that a private property or a range or what have you. But the cool thing about VR is that I can use it in my house and the ammunition is free. But the best development happens not only when you shoot more, but when you also track your progress as you go. So in this video, I'm going to present the results of a month of training along with my thoughts and experiences to help you determine, can VR make you a better IRL shooter? So the experiment is actually pretty simple. My plan was to execute a drill at the beginning of the month, timing each set, each drill, each time I do the drill as I went. Then I would spend the month training as often as I could in the Tactical Assault VR gun range, getting in more range time that I usually would be able to without using VR. And then lastly, I would run the drill at the end of the month again, timing the sets and comparing the first and last live fire days to each other. During the training month time period, I decided also that I would not run any rifle drills with my real steel rifle. The only weapons manipulation I would do was in tavr on the tavr gun range. And I chose tavr because it's the most accessible and realistic game I could use for this type of training that I already own. I was thinking probably H3 VR might be better for something like this, but I don't own it yet. So the drill I chose is fairly simple too. Starting in the standing position at 100 yards, you hit an 8-inch plate once, transition to the kneeling, hit the plate once again, transition to the prone, and hit the plate one last time. The time starts from the beep on the shot timer and ends at the last impact. The best drills will be those in which the shooter accurately engages the target with the first round in each position. A less successful drill will be those in which a shooter takes multiple rounds to score a hit. I executed my first live fire drills on a Saturday, recording both the footage and the round timing on a shot timer app on my phone. The shot timer I use is called Range Timer AP on the Apple Store. There are dozens of others like it on both Android and Apple stores, so I just found this one that worked the best for me. I only counted complete strings of fire, so if I ended up reloading in the middle or whatever, didn't make it to the end of the set, that set would not count towards the score. By the end of the day, I had collected 10 drills worth of data to analyze. I saved the screenshots of the timer with the times of all the firing into my phone, and I kept video recordings as a second reference in case the shot timer failed to accurately track my shots. And as a side, I'm sorry this footage is so garbage, but I think it does a decent job of concealing my identity, and it's kind of vibey, so I'm gonna roll with it. Once I got all my shooting done for that first live fire day, I packed up all my gear and I headed home for my month of training. I would love to be able to say that I trained absolutely every day for a whole month, but unfortunately, I would be lying. However, I did try to get in at least 2 or 3 sessions each week, and I strove to keep each session to a roughly 30-minute length. So some weeks ended up with more, some with less. By the end of the month, I had completed 11 solid training sessions, which is way more than I usually would do. The structure of the training sessions went something like this. So quick 2 to 3 magazine warm-up, snapping into targets just to get the flow going. And then the other 4 to 5 magazines, practicing the different firing positions, usually standing and crouching, maybe into the prone. And then I would respawn in with a new set of magazines and run variations of the whole drill all the way put together. I didn't really plan too much what I was actually going to do each day. I just kind of spawned in and shot according to the vibes of what I felt I needed more improve on. But just as an example, for sample training day, I might spend 2 mags warming up, just snapping on targets. Then I might have 3 mags doing standing double or single taps or something like that. And then 2 mags dropping into the kneeling, so standing, going into the kneeling, double taps or single taps, whatever the vibe was. And then the last mag in the prone, slow and controlled single shots. And then once all my mags were gone, respawn in and string it all together. So double tap standing, double tap kneeling, double tap prone through all the 7 mags until I hit that roughly 30-minute mark. On another day, I might have worked on like sight consistency or speed or accuracy or the trigger pull. It all kind of depended on what I was feeling needed worked on for that day. And that was mostly based on what my last training session was like. But the important thing was that I was spending time sending rounds down range as quickly and accurately as I could. By the end of the month, I had also started using the in-game shot timer to prep myself for the real life shooting reflexes of like moving on the beep and giving myself more context on like how fast I was actually performing the drills. Usually in the 30-minute sessions, I averaged about 2 full loadouts of magazines downrange. Each magazine is 30 rounds, each loadout has 7 mags, and I would get through about 2 loadouts. So 30 times 7 times 2, 420 rounds per session. That times 11 sessions is roughly 4,620 rounds. When I go to the range, I usually shoot the cheapest 55 grain 223 ammo I can find. And that usually goes for about 47 cents a round. So with all that math, if I had been doing all of that shooting on the range instead, I would have spent around $2,171.40 in ammunition, which is money that I definitely don't have right now. So that was good, but I did have some concerns about how my virtual range sessions might translate back into the real world. For example, like my VR gun stock doesn't fully replicate the weight, balance, size of my real rifle. The head box of the tavr target isn't a perfect stand-in for the IRL 8-inch steel plate. Environmental factors such as heat and humidity, my gear, stuff like that were also unaccounted for in my virtual range sessions. And probably the most important difference of all was that the click of a real life trigger is very different from the click of a virtual one. Alright, so the day for final live fire came around, and understandably I was a little nervous. I had not done as much training as I had wanted to, and I was pretty rushed getting to the range after completing all of my other Saturday chores. The sunlight was rapidly disappearing and the range was going to be closing in less than an hour by the time I got there. But once I got through a few hiccups of like the plate falling off the target stand and stuff, I was able to execute the full course of fire. I ended up with 14 good runs of the drill saved into both the photos on my phone and the SD card of my crappy camera. Somehow, this time around, the drills seemed to go much better than in my first live fire. I felt that my body was moving more smoothly, more efficiently, with more control. And I also remember feeling incredibly relieved and proud once my last shot got squeezed off. It was kind of a cool feeling to have. I felt like I had actually accomplished something doing this experiment. But having undertaken this experiment and then at that point, having seen it to completion, it was now time for me to figure out the results. Alright, so this is the nerdy part of the video. After everything was complete, I pulled all the data from my shot timer and the videos, compiling them into this spreadsheet, and that's what you're seeing here. I pulled the max time from each string of data, and that allows me to calculate the average time it took me to complete the 3 hits. Calculating those 3 hits divided by the amount of time multiplied by 100 gives the hit per second percentage, which is a measure of the likelihood of making a hit in each second of the drill. I also calculated hit factor by assigning hits a value of 33 points and misses a value of 10 points, ripping out the calculations of the missed versus hit shots and then dividing by time. I chose 33 because 3 hits times 33 points gets us 99 points, which is like pretty dang close to 100, right? And then 10 points for misses because it's a nice number that feels fair and balanced to me, at least, considering that I'm shooting at an 8-inch diameter steel plate at 100 yards. Obviously, that's not that hard a target to hit, but when you don't have, like, usually you're doing like A and B zone when you're doing hit factor with IPSC and whatever. I don't have a I don't have a B zone or a C zone or anything, so we're just going to call it 10. Each of these calculations were then averaged across each drill to find a metric for the entire day of shooting. So for our initial live fire, I ended up with an average time to complete the drill at 16.65 seconds, average hit per second percentage at 19.37, and an average hit factor of 5.59. Running all those same calculations on our final live fire, I ended up with an average time of 15.82 seconds, average hit per second percentage at 20.27, and an average hit factor of 7.84. So comparing the two, I get a 122% faster average time, a 96% higher hit per second average, and a 71% increase in hit factor. Now, I don't know how good that improvement is. This is my first time conducting this experiment, so I don't really know if it's a significant amount of improvement or not, but I also feel that it is significant enough of an improvement to be confident in saying that shooting in VR can improve your shooting skills if you are consistent enough with your training habits. I also think that it is worth mentioning that in this experiment, I made a few mistakes. Obviously, it's not the most super rigorously scientific experiment out there, but I feel like there were a few things that I would improve on if I was going to do this again in the future. First and foremost would be the consistency in getting to the virtual range. My schedule was so out of control that I didn't get to go every day or even every other day, and I feel that the improvement could be significantly higher if you were to shoot on a more regular schedule. Secondly, and I didn't realize this until after analyzing all the footage and everything, my shooting habits changed between the first and last live fires. In the first round of shooting, I actually had a much higher ready position than in the last. I would hypothesize that this is because in my 30-minute sessions, training sessions, it was more exhausting to keep my arms and body constantly up at that high ready position. And so unconsciously, I think I just dropped it out of my brain. What is even more interesting though is that despite the lower ready taking more time to complete, like from the ground getting up on target, my average overall time was still faster for the final live fire. So in the initial live fire, my first shots, not hits, but first shots averaged a 3.295 second split, while in the final live fire, they averaged at 3.87 seconds, so a little bit bigger. So what that means is that I was actually executing the drill faster, hitting my second and third shots in less time than I had in the first live fire. I would attribute this to like the muscle memory. Essentially, I gained over the previous month of repetitive shooting, hitting the same positions over and over and over again until my body ached and my hands, arms, and feet were sore. Being able to get a stable shooting position as quickly as possible allowed me to cut down the time it took to execute those shots. I found that most of the time at the beginning of my training regimen, I was struggling to find my sight picture on the target between positions, and forcing myself to repeatedly find my position quickly and efficiently was the real improvement I think I made, not necessarily in like trigger pull or sight picture or anything else. Thirdly, the difference in size between the tavr target hitbox and the 8-inch plate might have been a factor worth considering. I found it more difficult to hit the head box accurately than I did the 8-inch plate at the same distance. If I had to chalk this up to something, it would be the inherent inaccuracies in tracking my headset and controllers. There's very, very small movements of the controllers would often result in large deviations of the rifle and sight picture, which made it more difficult to be accurate as I was constantly fighting the controllers for position. The VR gun stock, right, helped significantly, but it's still not as solid as a rifle that's all one piece. If anything though, these like small problems actually I think made me more accurate at the range in real life because I didn't have to fight as much to get on target. So I would say that is a limitation of the VR training system, but that's actually one that helps you rather than hinders you in your real life performance, or at least in my experience. So far, I feel like it did. So my recommendation is, yes, if you already have access to a VR headset or a PC setup, you should definitely be spending time on the virtual range. Just considering the cost savings alone what was it, like $2,000 or something that I saved. More range time is never a bad thing. And I think the key here is to be consistent with your training while simultaneously being aware of VR-isms that may creep into your shooting habits. So, for example, in tavr, there's no way to put your rifle on safe. You only get semi and full. And so, right, if you're going to go do it for real life, you obviously need to make sure that you're doing everything safely. And this is the part of the video where I say I cover my butt legally and say don't do anything stupid and get yourself hurt and blame me for it, okay? But just like with your real steel dry fire training, stay wary of bad habits and unsafe behavior while you're training in VR, because if you're not careful, those things can translate over into your real shooting. But yeah, that's all I've got for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. I think the next one is going to be some arma videos or maybe another shooting video. I don't really know. Tell me in the comments what you want to see. Peace.